The Zodiac Killer claimed he had murdered 37 people, yet police could only ever prove 5. He was a ghost who sent terrifying letters and complex codes to the public, and then completely disappeared. So how did a serial killer who taunted the police and promised to reveal his name manage to vanish without a trace? This is the story of a dark puzzle that, even after more than 50 years, remains unsolved. The story begins in the late 1960s, a time of change and uncertainty in America. In Northern California, communities were growing, but people still felt a sense of local safety. That feeling was about to be shattered forever. On the night of December 20th, 1968, 2 high school students, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, were on their first date. They parked their car on a quiet, dark road near the city of Vallejo. It was a popular spot for young couples, a place to get away from the city lights. But on this particular night, they were not alone. Another car pulled up beside them and a man got out. Without warning, he attacked the 2 teenagers. The crime was brutal and seemed to have no clear motive. The local police launched an investigation, but they had very little evidence to work with. There were no witnesses, and the killer had left almost nothing behind. The community was shocked, but everyone hoped it was an isolated incident. They were wrong. For months, the case went cold. There were no new leads, and it seemed the killer had simply disappeared. Then, on the evening of July 4th, 1969, another young couple, Darlene Ferrin and Michael Majow, were sitting in their car in a park, also near Vallejo. Just like before, another car approached. It drove away, but returned a few minutes later. This time, the driver got out, walked directly to their car, and opened fire. Darlene Ferrin died from her injuries, but Michael Majow miraculously survived. He was badly wounded, but was able to give police a description of the attacker. He described him as a short, heavy man with a large face. The attack was terrifying enough, but what happened next sent a wave of fear across the entire region. Just 40 minutes after the shooting, a man called the Vallejo Police Department. The man's voice was calm and steady, which made his words even more chilling. He spoke in a flat, rehearsed tone, as if he were reading from a script. He took responsibility for the attack, and he also claimed he was the one who had killed the 2 teenagers on Lake Herman Road months earlier. To prove it, he provided specific details about the crimes that only the real killer could possibly know. The phone call ended, and the police were left with a horrifying realization. They were dealing with a serial killer. But the real mystery was just beginning, as the killer was not satisfied with staying in the shadows. On August 1st, 1969, 3 major newspapers in the San Francisco Bay Area each received an envelope. Inside was a letter from the killer. For the first time, he gave himself a name. The letter began with the words, "This is the Zodiac speaking." He provided more details about the murders to prove he was the real killer. But there was something else inside each envelope, something that would capture the public's imagination for decades. Each letter contained one part of a 3-part coded message, known as a cipher. The Zodiac demanded that the newspapers publish his code on their front pages. If they refused to do so, he promised he would go on a killing rampage and murder a dozen people over the weekend. The newspapers, faced with a difficult choice, decided to publish the ciphers. The Zodiac's strange symbols were now available for everyone to see. The code consisted of 408 symbols and seemed incredibly complex. The FBI's best codebreakers began to work on it, but they struggled to make any progress. The public became fascinated, and people all over California tried to solve the puzzle. A week later, the solution came from an unexpected place. A high school teacher, Donald Hardin, and his wife Betty worked on the cipher at their kitchen table. After 20 hours of intense work, they finally cracked it. The decoded message did not reveal the killer's name, as he had promised. Instead, it contained a terrifying confession. It began with the line, "I like killing people because it is so much fun." The writer went on to say that all the people he killed would become his slaves in the afterlife. The message was disturbing and offered no real clues about his identity. The Zodiac had played a game with the public, and he had won. He had everyone's attention, and he was not finished yet. The killer seemed to enjoy the fear he was creating, and his next attack would be his most bizarre and theatrical. On the afternoon of September 27th, 1969, another young couple, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, were relaxing by a lake in a beautiful, remote area. Suddenly, a man approached them. His appearance was terrifying. He was wearing a dark, bag-like hood over his head that covered his entire face, with holes cut out for his eyes. On his chest, he wore a bib with a strange symbol on it, a circle with a cross drawn through it. This would become the Zodiac's infamous symbol. He told the couple he was an escaped prisoner and needed their car and money. He seemed calm, which made the situation even more frightening. He ordered Cecilia to tie up Brian, and then he tied her up. The couple followed his instructions, hoping he would just take their things and leave. But he had no intention of letting them go. He then attacked both of them before walking away calmly. Incredibly, Brian Hartnell survived the attack and was able to get help. Cecilia Shepard, however, died from her injuries 2 days later. Before leaving the scene, the Zodiac did something strange. He walked over to Brian's car and, using a black marker, drew his circle and cross symbol on the door. Below it, he wrote the dates of his previous attacks. He was creating a scoreboard of his crimes for the police to find. Later that evening, the Zodiac called the police again. Just like before, his voice was calm and emotionless. He reported the crime he had just committed. The police traced the call to a payphone, but by the time they arrived, he was long gone. The Zodiac was becoming bolder, more confident, and his crimes were becoming more unpredictable. His next murder would take place in the heart of a major city. 2 weeks later, on October 11, 1969, a taxi driver named Paul Stine picked up a passenger in San Francisco. A short time later, Stine was found dead in his taxi in a wealthy neighborhood called Presidio Heights. He had been shot. This crime was different. It was not in a remote, quiet area. This was in the middle of the city, and this time there were witnesses. 3 teenagers who were in a house across the street saw the attack. They saw the killer take something from the taxi driver before walking away. They immediately called the police, who arrived just minutes later. In a frustrating twist of fate, one police car actually passed the suspect on the street. The officers stopped and spoke to him briefly, but because the radio dispatcher had mistakenly described the suspect as a black man, they let the white man they saw go. It was a critical mistake. The Zodiac had slipped right through their fingers. A few days later, a letter arrived at a newspaper from the Zodiac. Inside was a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt. This was undeniable proof that he was the killer. In the letter, he mocked the police for their mistake and for not catching him. He also made a new, terrifying threat. He said he was going to attack a school bus and kill children. This threat caused widespread panic, and for months, police cars followed school buses to protect them. The Zodiac continued to send letters and ciphers to the newspapers for several years. He seemed to enjoy the media attention and the fear he created. One of his most famous codes, the 340-character cipher, remained unsolved for 51 years. It was finally cracked in 2020 by a team of private citizens, but like the first one, it contained no name, only more taunts and strange messages. The police investigated many suspects over the years. The most famous was a man named Arthur Lee Allen, but they could never find enough evidence to officially charge him with the crimes. Then, after 1974, the letters suddenly stopped. The Zodiac Killer, who had demanded so much public attention, simply went silent. The case grew cold, but it never faded away. It became a permanent part of American folklore, a story of a killer who played a game with the police and the public and was never caught. The mystery left a deep scar on the communities of Northern California. People were left to wonder if the Zodiac was a neighbor, a coworker, or someone they passed on the street. The Zodiac's identity remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. He was a killer who wanted fame, yet he ultimately became a nameless ghost, a dark puzzle without a solution. The taunting letters stopped, the phone calls ended, but the question has always remained: who was the Zodiac? If you enjoy exploring fascinating real stories like this one, and want to improve and master your English at the same time, make sure to subscribe and press the like button. This channel is all about discovering remarkable moments from history, science, and human life, helping you learn English in a way that is both engaging and unforgettable. We look forward to seeing you in the next story. As we close, let's quickly look back. Claim, to say that something is true, often without proof. He claimed he was the best player, but he never won a game. Vanish without a trace, to disappear completely, leaving no sign of where you went. The old pirate treasure seemed to vanish without a trace. Pull up, to stop a car or other vehicle. A strange car pulled up outside our house last night. Motive, the reason for doing something, especially something bad. Police are still trying to find the motive for the crime. Isolated incident, an event that happens only once and is not part of a pattern. The school said the small fire was an isolated incident. Go cold, for a police case to stop having new information or clues. With no new evidence, the investigation quickly went cold. Open fire, to begin shooting with a gun. The guards will open fire if you try to cross the border. Rehearsed tone, a way of speaking that sounds planned and not natural. He read his speech in a rehearsed tone without any emotion. Provide, to give something that is needed or wanted. The guide will provide you with a map of the city. Deal with, to take action to solve a problem or manage a situation. The manager knows how to deal with customer complaints. Struggle, to find something very difficult to do. I often struggle to remember new vocabulary words. Disturbing, making you feel worried, shocked, or upset. The movie contained some very disturbing scenes. Remote, far away from where other people live. My grandparents live on a remote farm in the countryside. Pick up, to collect someone in a vehicle to take them somewhere. My dad will pick me up from the airport. Suspects, people who police think may have committed a crime. Police questioned several suspects about the robbery. Fade away, to slowly disappear or become weaker. As the music faded away, the audience became silent.